Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to part 3 of the time I did battle with a witch. I promised to wrap this up in the third and final video. This is the finale of the story. Just to catch you up, this is the story of a woman named June, a family member of mine, who got involved in drugs, was a serial child abuser and neglecter of children, and how she was involved in witchcraft and the wholesale of methamphetamines. And so after the exorcism, she comes to after 3 days of sleeping, quite confused, not sure what's going on, but really free of all this torment that she's been under for so long, that she's kind of like her old self again, like she was before all of this. And she doesn't really know what she's doing there or why we're being nice to her. And she's very disturbed by the fact that I'm being nice to her, because she has been less than nice to me. And so she kind of breaks down at one point and says, and starts to cry and says, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, and for what I did to you," or talking to me. And I said, "You mean the accusation? I've already forgiven you for that. No one believed you anyway. It was such malarkey." And she goes, "Well, obviously, I'm sorry for that. I mean, you're right. No one believed me. It didn't happen. No, I'm sorry about your dogs." Now, what you may not know is that one of the scars that my children bear from their childhood is the fact that for 4 straight years, every year, right around Christmas, our dogs were mysteriously killed or died in some odd way. 4 straight years in a row. The first one was my favorite dog in the whole world, next to the little BB dog that I introduced you to in one of my previous videos. But this dog, the first one, he died. He was old, but he was healthy until suddenly he wasn't. He died of kidney failure. The second dog was shot by a neighbor who I couldn't catch at it, but the dog was shot. I didn't see him get shot. I found the body in the bullet wound. So that dog was shot. The third dog got hit by a car. And the fourth dog got hit by a car in front of my son, who was only about 10 years old at the time. I mean, the dog got hit by a truck, like a pickup truck going. It was awful. It was an awful thing a kid had to go through. And now she's apologizing to me for these dogs. Now, I know the first dog just got sick. The second dog was shot, so that could have been somebody that did it. The third dog was hit by a car, but I think it was random. It just got out, and by the time we caught up to it, it'd been hit by a car and was laying in the ditch. And the fourth dog, it was just an accident that happened right in front of my kid, No, there was the neighbor lady up the road in her pickup truck. It was not in her cow truck, It wasn't anything they could have had anything to do with. But she's apologizing for my dogs dying. And so I'm like, "What are you talking about? What did you have to do with the dogs?" And I'm starting to get my hackles up. It's like it's starting to make me angry a little bit. And I'm sad, too, because this has been a hard thing. I mean, by this time, we have a 5th dog, and we're hoping that nothing happens. And nothing happened with him. He lived to be an old age. We broke the curse after this. But she tells me that she had employed, when she realized that I was not on her side, when she realized that I was actively working with her mother to try to get the kids away from her because she was a drug addict, that she sicked all these witches on us, that she had given our names and information out to these witches' covens, and they were all casting spells against me in particular. That I guess she saw me as the biggest threat, because I guess to her, a pastor, a minister still had some clout in the world. And she was afraid that my opinion of her, and plus I knew things about her that she didn't want people to know about, that I won't talk about. Because, I was a few years older than her and I watched her grow up. So Anyway, she saw me as a bigger threat than I thought she should. That I never dreamed that she would do this. But yeah, she apparently had cursed my dogs, and that these tragic deaths were a direct result of this curse. And I said to her, I said, "Oh, so the boils on my back, was that you too?" So that you know what I mean is that during the same period of time, really before I got plugged in at the devil fighting church, I broke out in boils all over my back, and it turned out to be shingles. The doctor said he'd never seen a case of shingles in such a young person ever, because at that point I was still just barely 30. And my to have shingles at that age, for him to be that bad. I mean, I have scars. I have scars on my back. I have nerve damage still from the shingles attack. And I said, "Was that you too?" And she said, "It probably was, because I gave your information out to so many people and said they needed to stop you with any means necessary." And so yeah, that was probably us too. That she had half the whole witches on the western half of the United States were praying against me. They had my name. So she entered a period of time where we did get her into church for a while, and she straightened out and got clean, got off the drugs, lived a normal life, and we thought we had won. And then one day, she was allowed a visitation with her kids. She was so close to getting her kids back. I mean, she'd gone through all of the requirements, and everything had gotten her record cleared up and everything. They were at least letting her have visitation now. When she took them out and never came back, she kidnapped them and left. And I guess it was another year and a half, 2 years maybe, that we did not hear from them at all. And this is the period of time where she was that county's most wanted for kidnapping her own kids against a county court order. And she had taken them off to New Mexico. I won't talk about, well, and also across the country. Like, she left her husband and took just those two girls and went through through nefarious means and illegal methods. She took them on a coast-to-coast vacation when they should have been in school 1 whole year. The next thing we know, she's been put in the mental institute again in New Mexico. And we get called to come and get the kids because she got committed and the kids got put into state custody. And we went and got them and brought them back. I won't go into those details. That's all between them and God. You don't need to know all that. They'd been through an ordeal, though. I will just say that. And I guess she got out of by the time we went to get the kids, she'd already been released and gone, and the state still had the kids, and they came back to Texas, and God did a healing in them, and they've turned out so good. Girls, I'm so proud of you. I watch you on social media, and, because I want to know how you're going to turn out, and I know there's a lot of water under the bridge, and a lot of time passed, and a lot of distance between us, but if you happen by chance to watch this, I'm so proud of you. You turned out so well. Hats off to your grandma. She did a good job. Sorry. Where was I? So we didn't hear from her anymore after that for the longest time. Until I'm at her mother's house, the grandma's house. Just on Sunday afternoon, I think. No, it wasn't a Sunday. It was during the week. I just happened to be over there when the phone call came in from the county coroner in Roswell, New Mexico. And he asked if we had a family member named June. And he described her. And of course, her mother was in total denial. Her mother was in total denial. I'm hearing the other half of the conversation. And I just hear her say, "Does she have this distinguishing characteristic?" Okay, I'm going to tell you. this girl just happened to be one of the weird people out there that had an extra nipple. So she had 3 nipples. You're going to totally think I'm crazy. To you, some of you, that may be the craziest part of the story, but there's lots of people out there that actually have 3 nipples. And she was one of them. And so her mother says, does she have 3 nipples? Or she didn't even give it to him. She just said, is there some characteristic about her that makes her very different than other people? And the guy says, you mean you're talking about the 3rd nipple? So we knew right then and there it had to be her. She was dead. That she had gone back to that life. She'd gone back to the witchcraft. She'd gone back to the drugs. And she was found dead one day in a Roswell, New Mexico hotel room. We didn't even go claim the body. There was really no money to pay for a funeral, and I guess a lot of us, we were just looking for the easiest way through it. I kind of took charge of things because her mother was completely out of it. It was just up to me to deal with it, and I did. I planned, she was finally able to help plan the funeral. I did a lot of it. I worked with the coroner. We did a remote identification of the body. We had the body cremated and our ashes returned to Texas, where we as a family went together, and I and my priest collar scattered her ashes on the Gulf of Mexico. Listen, people, don't think you can mess around with evil and get away with it. If you're involved in it, God can save you, but you have to stay out of it. Because if you go back, it's 7 times worse than the time before. You can get out of it, but you have to leave and never come back. You have to get out of the occult right now, or you will not survive it. It will catch up to you in the end. The devil is a liar, and he just wants you dead. He doesn't care about you. The wages of sin are death. That's the reality of this. Did she go to heaven or hell? Only God knows. I don't know the condition of her soul when she took that overdose. Now, some people in my family say she was murdered. I don't know if I believe that. There's not been proof of it. The man she was with, who was not her husband or anyone we knew of, who was with her in the hotel room, his story is shaky and it's a little weird, but hey. What do you expect from a drug dealer who wakes up with a dead body in the bed next to him? A drug addict, rather. So, I know it's a dark story. In the end, we saved the kids, and that's what's important. And they are living a good life right now. And I believe they're walking with God. You can't save them all. You just do the best you can. Ultimately, we are all responsible for the decisions that we make in this life. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was hard for me to tell. It's family, you know. It was all very stark and real for me. I am not saying all witches are evil and practice black magic, so don't even go there. But the groups that she was involved with absolutely did. And they were so dangerous to each other. None of them were ever healthy or happy. They were always casting spells on one another. That not only do they fight Christians and churches and righteous people, but they fight each other. That's the problem with black magic. It undoes itself half the time. They cannot get along. There is no peace or serenity within the circles of covens of black magic witches. It's just chaos.